Hello my friends, what I'm going to do today is show you how easy it is to set up physically based surface materials and explain why it's important that you might want to consider them. Poser has three material engines. It has the PoserSurface, it has here in the root node we have a CycleSurface, which is very complicated, and then we have PhysicalSurface. So what PhysicalSurface does is it gives you an easy way to create materials that will look good in Superfly renders. Now, I know a lot of you guys stay away from Superfly renders, but let me explain to you why you should. So with this scene, we have Victoria 4 and a couple of spheres here with ambient lighting or self-illumination in the scene. It's not obvious in the preview, but if I show you here, so this is a Firefly render. Probably took about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes to render. This is Firefly with global illumination turned on, and this is Superfly. As you can tell, each one gets more realistic than the one before. So this global illumination probably took 5 or 10 times as long. It's a Firefly render, but it took 5 or 10 times as long as the one without it turned on. And when you set up your render here, go Firefly. This is the button, the indirect light button. And when a lot of you tell me that the render speed of Firefly is faster than Superfly, that's because you're not comparing light with light. This scene here is lifeless. You know, these lights are not reflecting off the scene. Here, this indirect lighting is shining off this object here, off the inside of her arms, bouncing up into the shadows, bouncing off her arms up underneath her jawline here, and it's giving the scene a much more lively, realistic kind of graceful look of the shadows and all of the textures. And then when you see it in Superfly, even better still. So this scene, the Superfly scene, was quicker than either of the other two for a start, even though this was on the highest quality Superfly. So what I'm going to do is show you how easy this is to set up, and if your time's important, maybe you're going to want to go with Superfly in future. So this Victoria figure here, first of all, I'm just going to select her face. So we'll go to the material room, and I'll apply my texture to this character. So I select her face, skin face, new node, and then I'll do root PhysicalSurface. Now the great thing about Poser is that you can set it up so that it has two material engines simultaneously kind of set up, and whether you're in if you render in Superfly, it will use one, and if you render in Firefly, it will use the other. So what I'm doing is setting up this PhysicalSurface node. So I did right click, new node, root PhysicalSurface, and this is probably the easiest surface node or shader engine of the three. As you can see, there's less options here than there is in the original Poser one. With Cycles, there's actually less options still, but then there's millions of things that you have to set up to make it work. So the first thing that we're going to do is a nice little sheet here. What we're going to look for is the thing that gives the texture its color. So we want the diffuse, we want the specular, and we want the bump. If we had displacement, we'd do that as well, but there's none on this thing. So I'm just going to copy those images across. See, these are image maps, grayscale map, color map, and specular map here. So this one should be down the bottom. That's almost certainly a bump map. Yep. Wires in there, just follow the color of the wire, plugs into bump map. And the specular map's another grayscale map. Oh, there you go, grayscale map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to plug them into the right place here. So I take the color text. So the great thing is that these can be plugged into two places at once. So this is plugged into PhysicalSurface and into PoserSurface. So I'm not damaging this, I'm just adding to this. And I want to see what color the diffuse base should be. So I see there it's kind of a blue color. That's a characteristic of the old DAS skin textures. They used this blue colour, which I never really understood, or why they couldn't just capture the skin the right colour. But anyway, then I'm going to take this specular map and I'm going to plug it into the specularity here. and I'm going to make sure the specular is the same color there. So that's also a kind of blue color, slightly different to the other one. I'm going to plug that into there. Now, this might turn out to be too shiny, in which case I can put a HSV node in there and change the value, and I'll show you how we do that. We go node, math, HSV2, and we just plug this in between. So this then acts as an adjustment filter like that. So at the moment it's not changing anything. You'll see that's exactly the same color as that. But supposing I want this to be darker, then I just decrease the value by half, for example. Or if I want it to be brighter, I increase the value. At the moment it's not making any changes, but that's a nice way to build your textures so that they're editable. So I'm just going to move these out of the way. So one of the reasons why you should consider, apart from the fact that Superfly is a better renderer, more realistic renderer, the amount of render time is determined by the complexity of your node farms here. A farm, if that's the right word, I just made that up really. But the more nodes there are, the longer it takes Poser to calculate. So the fewer nodes we can have plugged in to achieve the same result, the better. Okay, so this is our bump map. So I'm just going to drag that from there into bump. And now what value bump do I want? Well, I'll just copy it across from there. And paste that in there. And the specular level, speculars, right, okay. So this is where there's not really consistency, because what it's doing here is it's using the values of grey, the between zero grey, which is black, and 100% grey, which is white, and all the shades of grey in between, to determine the level of specularity or shine. Just think of specularity as being the way that things kind of catch the light, if you like. Whereas over here we had specularity on the original PoserSurface. We had specularity, and then we had a choice to set a value for the specularity. So we could plug in our texture, but then we could tweak it still further, and that's kind of what we're doing with this HSV node, I suppose. But it's strange that they haven't gone with that here then, because we've got the bump map, and the bump map lets us dial in the value of the bump instead of just depending on the grayscale, which actually makes more sense in some senses, because you might want to go way above the highest or the lowest values that a grayscale map will give you. But it's just weird that they've chosen two different methods here. So anyway, so now we have this, these three textures are plugged in, and this is set to be a Superfly root render. Just going through checking. So we've got this texture to here, this specular map to here, and the colors are the same, and the bump map goes to the bump. So it's ready to go. Okay, so it's going to be this figure here. So if I make sure that I'm rendering in Superfly and save, and you'll see here, this is a really interesting thing. This one here is the original DAZ Studio Elite texture, which was designed for Firefly. Really complicated. This one over here is the PoserSurface node. Now the PoserSurface node only required four things plugged into it, whereas this had, like, you know, a dozen or something. Let's just go and compare again. So skin face. So 1, 2, 3. HSV was optional, so just let's say 3 plus the root node. Whereas here we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus these 3, so 13 plugged into here, and a much more complicated surface node in the first place. So we get exactly the same visual effect for far less complex kind of node arrangements. Now I'm going to just marquee around these. So I'll press left mouse button, hold down, and then I go on here, I go right click, and then I do copy. And now we're going to move on and do some other parts. So we'll do the lip. And the reason I've chosen the lip is because it's possibly very slightly different in the way that we do it, and we just do paste. So long as we don't do replace, we can just place that straight in like that. And let me just compare. Yep, so it's using the same map. Let me just compare the bump map on the lip 1.15. Yep, that's the same. Specularity, is it the same specular map? Let's have a look. Yep, same specular map. So it's a lip, but it's doing the same thing. And let's choose this face and zoom in a little bit so we can see what's happening. So this is one of the things with PhysicalSurface is that you always get this shine in the preview. I don't know why. I've never really bothered to look into how you can fix it, but so we've done the face and we've done the lip. And as you see, that looks perfectly fine. So now what I would do is I would work through the other materials of that texture. So let's say skin, let's do the torso here. And what I did was I just clicked in the scene with the eyedropper to pick up the torso rather than having to scroll through this list here. And then again, I'm going to paste. But obviously this is the face maps, so I'm just going to plug these in instead. These are still on a blue. And I'm going to find, what else have we got? Image map here, what's that? That's specular. Whoever made this didn't label everything consistently. Sometimes they called them specular, sometimes they called them just image map. They didn't rename everything. And you can see that's plugged into the HSV node because the specular is that the image has changed. And then all I need is that last map, which is the bump. So the bump is here, and that's a kind of an orangey one, if I can find it. There we go. And I'm going to plug that into the bump map. And very often on the body, the bump maps will be lower setting. On this particular case, it's not. It's the opposite. It's higher. So I'm just going to click here to pick that up. Control C to copy. And then I'm just going to paste that there. Okay, and now I'm just going to do remove detached nodes just to get rid of those spare ones that we didn't need, the ones that were from the other texture. And generally with the body, I will copy the body setup here like this. And then that will work for skin, head, torso, skin, hip, and so on. So I'd work through here, pasting these, just confirming that the bump map's the same, the specular level's the same on each of those. Then when it comes to the arm, I do what I just did again, replacing those parts with these textures, like so. And there's one, there we go, specular. This time I'm just going to plug your specular straight in, and remember, remove detached nodes. That keeps it nice and simple. Personally, I would just delete all of these PoserSurface because I never render in Firefly, and then it just keeps it nice and lean and quick. Right, okay, so now there's a couple of special cases. So let's go to cornea. Cornea is the surface of the kind of the surface of the eyeball. There's two parts, two transparent parts. There's the cornea and the eye surface in Poser. We'll just set this up in here. We'll go new root PhysicalSurface superfine, and that goes white because that's just solid for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this to transparency. Remember, 1 is completely transparent, 0 is no transparency, and it's that anything between those is levels of transparency. That's fully transparent now, but I'm just going to make sure that there's some specular. So I'm just going to set that to white. And now that's specular there. Now, we don't get to determine the size of the highlights on specular. This is where it gets a bit more confusing because we could plug in a node such as Blinn or whatever to determine the sharpness of the highlights. But for now, let's just leave it on that. And again, the more towards black that specular is, the less bright the specular will be. Just think of the colours as being the value of the specularity. And then I'd copy that one, and I'll go down to eye surface, and I'm going to do the same. And now the eyes have been restored. Then I'm going to go to the teeth. Teeth. And I'm going to take the image map for teeth. And I'm going to quickly plug that into there. Make sure that's set to superfine root. I'm going to make this whatever colour that is. Just going to see if there's anything else I need to do. So we've got a specular value here. So this is bump. Okay, we'll plug the bump in. And we'll give it the same value as the other one, 0.0003, almost no bump whatsoever, which you kind of would expect. You don't want a lot of bumpiness on teeth. Is there anything else? Where's the last one? Image map here. This is going to be specular. Going to plug the specularity into here. Make sure that this is, oh right, now that's interesting. This is a specular of almost black. Oh, now I ruined it. Right. Z, so barely specular at all, which is a bit strange really. Okay, specular colour, very, very dark. Okay, that's odd, because you would think that you would want quite a lot of shine. Let's just give that a quick render and see how the teeth look for shine. Oh, okay, they do look quite natural. They look okay, not too shiny. Let's just check the eye. Kind of looks okay. It's picking up a light very strongly there. Might have to adjust that. Not really meant to be this low. I put light down to uplight the faces, and it's overdoing the eyeball. Okay, one last thing that we need to do, it's quite useful. Oh, well, two last things actually, is we're going to deal with the hair. The hair comprises 4 parts. We've got a scalp, which is the base, and then we've got 2 strands which are transwrapped. So let's just do the hair. So we've got a colour map, a specular map, is that? Right, okay, so it's using a single grayscale map here as a specular map and as a bump map. So it's kind of I don't know if you'd call it lazy, but it's you know, it's if it works, I guess. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of this over here. They're doing some hokey maths on this. Let's see what they're doing. Right, they're using the specular math to kind of grayscale it. And the transparency map plugs into the specular to make this transparent. So you could plug it in like this. I'm just going to do a very simplified version here. So I'm going to do a new node, PhysicalSurface, and we want this to be a Superfly node. You can see the hair's gone white there straight away. I'm going to plug the colour map into there, make sure the colour map's the same shade. That's kind of a cream colour. Now I need a transparency map, so I'm just going to plug this transparency straight into transparency and set that to 1. So it means it's going to be 100% transparent where it's black, and not transparent where it's white. And then I'm going to take this grayscale map, which let me see. Oh, okay, so they've done that specular math to turn it into grayscale. I'm going to plug that into specular. I'm going to change the specular colour to the same as they've got over here, which is kind of dark. It's a bit weird, but okay. And the bump map as well, which is this one. And what bump value is that? 0.02582. So just copy that. Doesn't really matter what the value is, we can just copy it. And that's there. Okay, now I'm going to copy all of that, because it's very likely that it applies exactly the same thing. Let me have a look. Oh, no, it's darker, so that's low lights. Okay, so I'm just going to paste this in here, but I'm just going to change the diffuse colour map as we did before. And transparency map, how does that look? That one's a bit more specialist as well. And specular, that's this grey map here, I guess. Yep, so I'm going to take that specular map and I'm going to plug it into specular. Then I'm going to remove detached nodes to clean it up. And now that should be fine. And then the last thing is the scalp. The scalp does the same stuff actually. I don't really know that it needed all that, but this is really just a matter of showing you how to do transparency. So I'm going to use this diffuse node because I'm certain that this is going to be a different map to the other one. I'll show you here. Oh no, actually it's not. Okay, well, that'll teach me. Okay. Okay, I'm going to leave that as it is then. And I'm going to do remove detached nodes. And that should now render the hair. Now, I could mess about with the specular, but let's just see how that renders for now. And hopefully that hair will look kind of as it was before. Let me have a look. If I'm even using the right figure here. Let me just cancel it. Oops. So that's this one, yeah. So that was the right one, face cam. So I'm just wondering why I'm seeing something over on the side. Okay, I thought I might be another figure. Okay. There's a wall or something in the way. Right, A for auxiliary camera. No, there isn't. I must just have a very low perspective. Okay. Go back to here. Okay, and I'll just show you the last thing. This is ambient light, and what it's doing is using this tile generator to generate the checkerboard pattern, using an ambient color of orange. So that ambient means that it's self-illuminating. Basically, it's light coming from inside like a light bulb. And then I've set the value to 30 so it reflects on her. And to do that in a physical surface node, all I just do is go root, physical, take that tile, make sure that's Superfly again, take this tile pattern into emission here, change the color to this. So it's the value is set by the checkerboard as well as the color, and then I just set the emission strength to 30 or whatever I want to do, and you'll see that that's now lit up. So now all I want to do is just render those two. So I've actually got one here that I've completely created earlier, so I'm just going to apply the texture to her whole body now. So now she's got that texture on every part of her body. You can check that. If I just do material, click on her arm, you'll see there's a physical surface node, and I've deleted the PoserSurface node. So now if I render that, so this is on Optics High, so it's the highest quality, and you can see how nice the lighting is there. So this is the Firefly setup figure, and this is the physical surface. Now, with the character, there's hardly any difference in the quality of the skin textures, notwithstanding the fact that we could have gone in and done subsurface scattering, but there wasn't any on the original character, so it didn't seem like a need to put any on this. But you'll see they're indistinguishable, yet this side only uses four nodes plugged into a root node, It's got nice ambient illumination, casting nice lights on her, and it looks superior to this side, but for less effort. So I strongly suggest in future that if you do think about creating textures yourself, don't shy away from this physical surface node, because it will reduce your render times. It will simplify your materials. Anybody can work out how to do this. You can see just now I just showed you numerous different textures, and it's far easier to set up a texture in PhysicalSurface than it ever was in PoserSurface. So hopefully that gives you some ideas, guys, and hopefully this is still recording and my head doesn't disappear completely. So I will speak to you later. You take care.